Hi, I'm Bryan Uhler with Pioneer Builders. In this video, we're going to talk all about waterproofing. This one is sponsored by Polyguard. So you might remember in the past, I was here with Matt Reisinger during one of his videos on the Build Across America series. Now we actually have a foundation in. But the reason I have to take waterproofing so serious is because I build in the Pacific Northwest. You know what it does in the Pacific Northwest? Well, it is kind of sunny today, but for many months of the year, we get a ton of liquid water, AKA rain. So I have to think about how I'm going to manage rainwater. Much more important for me than maybe humidity if you're in the southeast or something like that. This particular site poses some unique situations and challenges. One thing is I'm going for zero energy ready home, and one of the things I'm going to do is bring some of my mechanical equipment in the crawl space. I'm not going to have a vented crawl space, it's going to be an unvented crawl space. In a sense, it becomes like a short basement. That's what Steve Basic would say. So if I get water in there, that's a problem for me. I have to make sure that I keep all of that rainwater outside of the foundation. Something else that made this a very unique project is the site slopes from back to front and from side to side. It's got basically compound angles to its sloping. We had between 8 and 9 feet of elevation from the back corner to the front corner. So we had to step the foundation at the excavation stage. Then we have to actually step the footing structurally. We have to step the foundation walls. There's just a lot going on. And what I ended up doing on this one was using a suite of products from Polyguard. I'm going to talk about the science with you, some of the parts and pieces that go into it, but then I'm also going to demonstrate how this system, when it works together, will protect your foundation from liquid water. So I'm going to grab a couple of sticks of rebar. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but when you look at the site, all of these elevation changes, this is basically where the porch is. But I'm going to grab these and come around. So rebar is short for reinforcement bar. Concrete works good under compression, but not so good under tension. What that basically means is if you had just rebar and you lifted it up and it was just a beam and you put pressure on the bottom of it, it would tend to want to crack out. But if you've got good support underneath, that concrete is amazingly strong. So that's why you see rebar in your different foundation systems. Sometimes you'll see them in concrete slabs, things like that. I actually watched a show, it was like a National Geographic years ago. It was kind of a thought experiment. What would happen if all of a sudden mankind wasn't on the planet? These are the types of things I watch. Anyway, over time, all of these skyscrapers started falling down. Do you know why? Because rebar eventually will rust out. It will lose its strength and it'll fail. Now in a residential building, is that as likely to be as big of a deal as a skyscraper in downtown Manhattan? Probably not. But it illustrates the power of water over time, what can happen as far as degrading things like steel. When it comes to liquid water, it's kind of like if you have a roof leak, you know immediately. So you kind of want to pay attention to both things when it comes to having water failures. It can be from liquid water, it can be from water vapor, gases if it was under pressure. But let me show you this real quick. So this is the steel rebar that you're used to seeing. It is heavier, we're used to using it, but it's also strong. It has these ribs. It's definitely a good product. But one thing when it comes to water management, we're basically starting at the ground. We're starting at the structure. This is green bar from Mateen Bar. It's glass fiber reinforced polymer, GFRP. Super lightweight, it's not going to rust out. Just something to think about when it comes to your foundation system. Work with your structural engineer if you're curious about using that. So that's going to help out to make sure that we have a more durable foundation system. So when we build our foundations, what we have is our spreader cleats in here. This spreader cleat gets placed on top of this foundation. That ends up going all the way through. So we basically have that steel that runs through, and as far as I'm concerned, that's a little bit of a weak point. I'm not going to replace that with glass fiber poly, well, I'm saying it wrong, but you know what I'm talking about. I just said it right a second ago. Glass fiber reinforced polymer. Got it. So that's a little bit of a weak point. We need to think about how we're going to solve for that. Another thing is we don't pour this monolithically, meaning we don't cast this concrete at the same time as we cast the footing. So technically, while these are touching, they're not really integrated into each other. So that would be a joint, you might call it a cold joint, and you want to make sure that that is your weak point. This is almost like a windowsill, gets treated and protected in some way. And I'm going to show you what we're doing on this project in just a little bit. As we come up, you can see, well, let's go over here. You see this little rock pocket right here? That's really not bad, but this would be another potentially weak point. This is a cast-in-place concrete as opposed to CMU or concrete masonry block. Concrete masonry block is going to allow things like water vapor to pass through more easily than something like this. So know what your substrate is, but something like that you might want to treat with something that's a little bit more structural when it comes to waterproofing. And we're going to do that with the same product that we're using at this joint here. Now this right here, and you can see up here, these are snap ties. This is a really nice wall because you can see that there was a panel here, and a panel here. These panels would have butted up to each other, but what goes in here is what we call a snap tie. So on top of this wall, we have the snap tie sit there, another board comes up here, and then these wedge shoes come on, and basically that just clamps everything together so that when you pour the concrete, this doesn't all blow apart. Then when all is said and done, you take off your wedge shoes, you strip your boards. The snap tie is still sticking out. It's called a snap tie because you can snap that off. But guess what else we have? We basically have metal that runs all the way through the foundation wall. Let me tell you a story. One of our company mottos is we've done everything wrong at least once. So we built a pretty high-end custom home. And what we did for waterproofing on the outside was we used just sheet polyethylene. I'm sure it was 6 mil. It feels okay when you first install it, but over time it gets brittle and it also isn't near as durable. One of the metal elements punctured through that, and we were one of the last houses on this big hill. And remember I talked about liquid water. This time it wasn't so much rainwater, it was subterranean water. And where we're at, the last person has to deal with the water. So everybody's water was coming uphill. It ended up rusting this out on an accelerated level. Water was just dumping into the house, and it was a fully finished basement. I'm kind of like the house whisperer. I can just walk into a house and tell when something's wrong. There was mold in that brand new custom home. The carpet was wet. And so that was all because we did the best we thought we could do when it came to what we did on the outside. But all of these factors adding together led to a house failure. Thankfully, it wasn't a big deal. We were able to take care of it. The homeowner was fine. But that was about 20 years ago, and I still remember it. If I can prevent anything like that from ever happening again, my homeowners are going to be happier, and I'm not going to have the stress of wondering how is my house going to hold up. I know I've done everything right. So I'm going to treat these just like that with that blue barrier product. Now, right now I'm inside a garage. This is just for illustrative purposes. Then when it comes to this whole area here, I'm sure you're used to seeing things like Huber zip system, structural sheathing, or some kind of membranes that go up on a house, and that's your WRB. Okay, so here's the question. What is your WRB below grade? What is your weather or water resistive barrier? Do you know exactly what it's doing? Depending on where you're at, water table could be a thing. You might have to use some sort of subterranean pumping system or what have you. We're just trying to get bulk water to not go through this wall. In the past, we've used asphalt emulsion. Why? Code approved and inexpensive. Those are two things that my dad would tell you, that's good enough, we're happy to go with that. But I have known, and my brother Tim with Awesome Framers have known, that there is a better way. And so that's what we use here, is the Polyguard Stretch Flex. It's kind of nice with that name, Stretch Flex. It gives you the idea that it's going to be able to stretch and flex as needed. So the asphalt emulsion is going to help with things like water vapor. This Polyguard Stretch Flex is going to help when it comes to actual liquid water, making sure that that does not get passed into this foundation wall, potentially rust out the steel, but keep it from getting inside my unvented crawl space. I want to keep all that water outside of my building envelope, and having that suite of products is the way to do it. So this is the Polyguard Blue Barrier Gap Filler. Let's see, I'm gonna grab this. Go ahead and come over here and I'll show you where they've installed some of this already. So if you look down here, right now this gun is empty, but you can see where they've covered that joint. We're gonna use that same product when it comes to those snap ties. Right here, this is the sleeve for the water line, so we're gonna have to waterproof that. Basically, you wanna just keep any path of water from coming inside. So we were in the garage. Over here is this crazy, bizarro crawl space that we're gonna end up working in, but it's gonna end up being pretty comfortable for somebody. And over time, I know I'm not gonna get water in there. We're not gonna have microbial growth, which is just a nice way of saying mold. And this is step one. So just like we started talking with structure from the ground up, now we're gonna start talking about the Polyguard products essentially from the ground up. And I'll back up just one step. When it comes to you designing, you might need a geotechnical report so that you know what kind of soils that you have. We've got pretty well-graded soils here. There's plenty of little pebbles in there. There's different sized stone. It's kind of sandy. I've had enough geotechnical reports done in this area that I know the soil types. I can't tell you the actual classification as a civil engineer might be able to, but these are pretty well graded soils. So I actually don't have to do a footing drain on this one. It's not required by code, and I confirmed with the local building inspector just to make sure that we were on the same page. So we can basically keep all the water away from this house, and it's gonna drain into the soils. So that is a win. Over here, then, is the Stretch Flex. So again, Blue Barrier Gap Filler, that's got more structure to it. This has not been mixed up yet, but this will give you an idea of what we're looking at. So we're gonna try it in a couple of different ways. We have a drywall paddle that we're gonna try to stir it. We'll try different things. This is the first time that we've used this. And as with anything, it's good for you to get together with your guys or the women you work with, watch the videos on installation, but then also talk through with those who are gonna do the installation. Just spend 15 minutes to a half an hour coming up with a game plan on how the product is actually gonna be executed. So this product, different ways you can apply it, but you might think if you've ever, say you've cut in a wall or something like that when you're painting, this is like cutting in here. Then you're gonna use this product, and we're gonna use rollers. We'll probably also use some pretty sturdy, heavy-duty brushes. We're just gonna try different things and find out what is the most efficient use of materials, coupled with the easiest on the guys, and make the most efficient use of labor. So that's gonna fill up the field here. If you come in and see this snap line, my brother and I were doing different story polls as far as where we were gonna end up backfilling inside the garage here because we have so many elevations that are going on. What you wanna do is snap a line, depending on what your finished grade is gonna be, about 2 inches below your finished grade. Typically, your finished grade is gonna be 6 inches below siding. So 8 inches down is probably where you wanna snap your line, but take a look at your site. Like in this one, I think I might have 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 different retaining walls of different configurations. So you can't just use a one size fits all. You kind of want to know how things are going to play out when it comes to you snapping your line. So once you've done that, once you've filled all of that up, Now here's the Dimple mat that you can use. The configuration of it is it has the Dimple mat, and then it also has this geotechnical fabric. Geotechnical fabric is like saying it's clothing for dirt. I'm pretty sure that that's how it literally translates from the Latin, because it's textile. That's where that comes from. So the geotextile, for the geotechnical, what that does is it prevents soil particles from passing through here, but it would allow water to be able to come through, hit this plastic, and be able to run down. It relieves hydrostatic pressure up against the foundation. Now here I don't anticipate having much hydrostatic pressure, but hydrostatic pressure is basically, if you have a mass of soil, right? You say you've got a column of soil and you start putting water in it, that soil is going to start pressing against that column or that cylinder. So what this does is it relieves any soil pressure because of the hydrostatic pressure, I should say. There's always some soil. It doesn't get as strong if you're not allowing there to be an overly high amount of water. Hopefully you're following that so far. So if you look down here, you can see where those dimples are. This side here goes up against the foundation. Water then would come in, be able to pass through here as needed, and drain out to the bottom. And again, in this case, we actually don't need a footing drain, and I'm perfectly confident that we're going to be okay. One of the things I'm so privileged about what I do for a living is I get to talk to the technical experts at these companies. So I had a meeting and I was able to talk to one of the gentlemen, and it was like, what do you recommend? What do you think is the easiest way to install this? So this is what we're going to use. The Stay Put Quick Grip LVOC. I love names that are completely and utterly logical. It's called the Stay Put. Guess what it's supposed to do? Keep things put. It will keep it stayed put. All right, this is a spray. You can see they've got the hose, they've got the gun. So if you've done any type of paint spraying, you kind of know what you're looking at here. You spray it up against your substrate. In this case, it's going to be the concrete. Quick sidebar, if you're doing ICF, think through the system just a little bit differently. Spray this, get it tacky, and then you use the Polyflow product and roll it out. Push it against it, and that's going to be the easiest way. It's almost like a spray adhesive because that's exactly what it is. So that's what we're going to use to install the Polyflow product. One other thing that I wanted to touch on here is it's LVOC. So this was just a new thing, low VOCs. So it's not going to off-gas those VOCs as much. It's Green Guard certified. You can get LEED credit for it. And while it is on the outside of the building, part of why I'm interested in it is I'm looking for materials that meet the Indoor Air Plus certification. Again, I probably didn't need to use this for the Indoor Air Plus certification, but it's a product that you might want to think about if you're looking for Green Guard certification or LEED credits. All right, as we start closing out, for those of you who don't know, I'm an accountant builder, which on the scale of awesomeness is not the most awesome thing when it comes to building. No, just kidding. But if you've ever watched Parks and Recreation, Ben Wyatt, he and I have a lot in common. In fact, speaking of the cones of Dunshire, I have to show this gun to you. And when it comes, the reason I say the accountant side is you can get free shipping from these guys. And like I already talked about, I like getting tech support. So talk to them, get their help when it comes to takeoffs, advice, what have you. But I think this is a pretty darn robust system. And I also like that it's not, it's all in one. It all comes from the same company, so you don't have people pointing one finger at the other. Okay, so anyway, you saw that I pulled this back. You've probably seen Reisinger do this before. This is actually a sausage tube as opposed to a caulking tube that you're used to seeing in a more residential setting. Commercial guys would take this, nip the plastic or whatever this covering is, but check this out. this is actually self-puncturing. I'm not going to puncture it all the way because I'm not going to use this right now for installation, but just by threading this on, it will puncture it, and then you cut the tip to whatever size you want for the bead to come out, and now you're good to go. I just absolutely love it when companies solve a problem that I think most of us didn't even know existed because we've done it one way for so many years. So that's it. That is a pretty bulletproof way to waterproof your foundation system. Just as a reminder, this is an unvented crawl space. If you're building a basement foundation, and especially if you have any type of water table issues, make sure that you use some kind of a dimple mat. You want to prevent hydrostatic pressure from causing any kinds of issues, especially in a finished space. Unvented crawl space, nobody's going to be living down there, but I will have the mechanicals. But in a basement, it is especially important for indoor air quality, comfort, and durability that you keep that water outside. Thank you so much for watching. I have a lot of other videos on buildshownetwork.com. A lot of other contributors on there. We actually have 2 new ones. One's an oldie but goodie, Jordan Smith, and then Michael Conley from Chicago. I actually visited him, and man, that guy does amazing work. And if you want to see some incredible basements, he's the guy to check out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. Now go build something.